Okay. There it goes. Okay. Patty, I'll let you. Sorry.
Okay, get started. That's okay. That's okay.
Yeah.
No worries.
I'll get it in a second.
Hi, everyone. We are so glad that you are here. It's Hallmark Award season, right? Our favorite time of the year as advisors. And we are so glad to have this opportunity to spend some time with you as advisors to give an overview of the Hallmark Awards program and what you can expect. And we'll share some best practices and, answer any questions you may have. The student engagement team is with us today. My name is Patty Van Etter. If you haven't joined any of our sessions before, I serve as the chapter outreach and development coordinator for Phi Theta Kappa. If you have any questions or concerns or want some additional support or resources, always feel free to reach out to me. And today, our student engagement team is with us. Dr. Blake Ellis is not with us today. He's the only one that's not. He's very busy today. He's our Chief Engagement Officer. Probably if you are on Facebook or social media, you know who Dr. Blake Ellis is and his beautiful kids, and that he's an Astros fan and I'm a Phillies fan. So, if you can always connect with him there and also reach out via email. I also have the privilege of introducing for the very first time in a public setting, drum roll please, Dr. Susan Edwards, yay! Our Associate Vice President of Honors Programs and Undergraduate Research. We're so proud of Susan. She defended her doctorate yesterday, so we're celebrating along with her. So congrats to her. Jennifer Stanford, who you're going to hear a lot from today, because not only is she the Associate Vice President of Program Implementation, she manages all the whole Hallmark Awards season for us. And I call her the Hallmarks Queen because she really is the Queen of Hallmarks. Reagan Chastain is with us today, our curriculum designer. And of course myself. So we are recording this and we will post this this recording in the 5-star advisor curriculum. And also I will, because it's Hallmark Awards, we will make sure we send you a direct link to view this and also the PowerPoint. So thanks for joining. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat and we'll monitor it as we go along. But it's my honor to turn it over to the Queen of Hallmarks for Phi Theta Kappa, Miss Jennifer Stanford.
Oh, thank you, Patty. Well, I did put that also to reiterate that, we know we have advisors from varying degrees of experience. We're going to do a new advisor session next week, but we don't want you to have to wait, throughout the entire presentation before you ask questions. So please don't hesitate. Go ahead and put it in the chat. Patty, Reagan, or Susan will interrupt me, and please interrupt me if we need to stop and answer questions or go down a little different direction, because that's what these sessions are all about, is helping you, and we want to get you the information you need as quickly as possible. So I'm starting with this particular slide because I think it's always important for us, not only staff, but for our advisors too, to remind ourselves of why we have Phi Theta Kappa programming. It is not about checking off a list. Yes, recognition is part of it. It's setting those higher goals for our chapter members. And really teaching them some skills that are going to make them, we hope, active, engaged citizens, leaders in their community. But first, before they may be leaders in their community, they're probably using their college experience to practice a lot of those skills. And so we always think of that chapter experience as a leadership lab. Right. So it's got some low risk there. We know advisors are there to kind of put the bumpers on the sides and let them let them stretch themselves outside their comfort zone while they're gaining some really, really important transferable skills. And so you see some of the things there. This really is it's embedded in all of our programming, but especially if you're participating in the Hallmark Awards. That's not just a step that we want you to skip. Sometimes chapter advisors and even officers will tell us that, oh, our projects really did not go as well as we had planned. Maybe we didn't even finish the final part. So we're not going to submit anything for Hallmark Awards. Well, we want you to know that that's actually not the purpose of the Hallmark Awards. It's not just to submit when you feel like you have an award-winning project. It's to submit to really put that service learning and that reflection piece in place, as well as to help them focus on those writing and editing skills. So it's okay to write about entries or projects that maybe were not 100, an A+ in your book, but they still learned a lot. And by going through that process, they're really going to submit lessons that they learn going through this process. And so we do encourage you, just plan ahead, help your members plan ahead for that the project is not finished until they've submitted their Hallmark Awards. So if you are aiming to be a 5-star chapter, and a lot of chapters are, because chances are if you're participating in this session, you want to be a 5-star chapter. And that is really not possible unless you submit at least 3 Hallmark Award entries. And those are, of course, our 2 primary chapter projects, honors in action and college project, and then at least 1 individual category. And advisors, please don't be shy about making sure your students know that there are advisor award categories. There's categories strictly for teams, and we'll talk about those in just a minute. But you are not tooting your own horn to just remind them that there are advisor awards, and that, of course, you're as an integral part of the chapter as the students. So, little housekeeping, we want you to know the deadlines. We are so happy to say that all of our Hallmark Award applications that are online at my.ptk.org is this last one right here. They are available. And when you log in as an advisor, you're going to immediately see those. When students log in, our members log in at my.ptk.org, they're only going to see the Fall Scholarship app at this point. You have to make them a delegate. And so we'll talk about that process in just a moment. But please note these deadlines. The very first one, December 7th, just less than a couple months away. That's for all of our college administrator awards. Then January 11th, we do stagger deadlines for a reason. We know that if we have every category on the same deadline, it's going to be really hard to, especially those individual award categories, to prioritize those. So we hope that spreading it out helps the chapter organize and make more than just 2 or 3 entries. So January 11th is for chapter members, officers, advisors, and then January 18th are the 2 chapter award categories that are due. And then Alumni Hall of Honor is due on January 30th. Now, it is very true that the deadline is actually not 11:59 p.m. It is 5 p.m. on a Central Standard Time zone. So please, I know students sometimes think they have until midnight to submit these, but we do close it off at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. Okay, how are we doing on chat? Do we have any questions so far? We're good. Okay. All right. Well, again, I'm doing an overview. And so that's why we want you to know that you can ask questions at any time so that we can get right to the information you need. So we just want to hit the highlights here to know the administrator categories. We have 3 different categories for college presidents, and those are based on years of service, or if they're retiring. So if they are a president for 3 years or less, we have the Paragon Award for new presidents. If they are serving 5 years or more as at the same institution, the same college, then they're eligible for the Gordon Award of Distinction. Now, there is an intentional break there. I said 3 years and then 5 years. And Dr. Lynn, Dr. Lynn Tinter-Ladner, was very specific in that she wanted that break. Both of these are, lifetime achievement awards in the sense that they are one-time only recipients, but that Gordon Award really is, kind of our most prestigious. And so she did want it to be not just at the 4-year mark for eligibility, but that 5-year mark. So that's why there is a difference between 3 and 5 for Paragon and Shirley B. Gordon. If your president is retiring, then the Bennett Lifetime Achievement Award is where you want to nominate them. But then over here, the Distinguished College Administrator, vice presidents, deans who have served at least 3 years in that particular administrator role, they're eligible for our Distinguished College Administrator Award. The Community College State Director Award, that's probably going to be something that is rarely submitted, for each chapter, of course. And so it may be that your college president wants to work with you on nominating a state director. But, again, that's probably, few and far between in terms of times you're going to be nominating a state director. But for these awards, it is important to note that we really did make the application process very straightforward. There are only 3 questions that you're answering. You can work with your students, particularly for these. It's great when the students are directly involved, but we know administrator awards, there's going to be some history there that only the advisor has. And so, it's perfectly okay to kind of take the lead, if you will, on making sure that the chapter is nominating a deserving administrator or college president. It's also the case that even though, like our Paragon Award says presidents, that campus CEOs are eligible for this. So if it's a chancellor, president, sometimes the campus CEO is called a provost. It just depends on the college system. If you have a question about those, certainly email us and we can, we'll address that one by one. Okay, these are the member and advisor awards. You can nominate up to 2 chapter officers, including chapter president for distinguished chapter officer, or the advisor can nominate the entire team with 1 entry. And this particular team award only requires the chapter advisor entry. You don't have to have a student also write part of that nomination. For the chapter officer and chapter member awards, you have a member writing part. They're answering to, I think 2 to 3 specific questions. And then the advisor writes a section as well. And you're responding to very specific questions. You're not just sitting down and writing an essay or a letter of recommendation. Chapter members are those who have not served in a designated leadership role. If you've reported them to headquarters as a chapter officer in 2022, that means they are not going to be eligible for chapter member award, but you can nominate them for chapter officer. Advisor awards, as I said, these are also based on years of service. Continued excellence is for those that have already received a distinguished advisor award. Paragon awards are for those advisors who have served less than 4 years. And when we say less than 4 years, we actually mean even if they've only served a few months, they're still eligible to be nominated. And then anything over 4 years is distinguished advisor unless they've just received that, and then you would nominate them for continued excellence. Regional officer, those awards are for regional coordinators to submit, so we will skip over that. I did want to mention, as I've said earlier, the 5-star chapter requirements are that you submit at least 1 individual category. And if for some reason you miss this earlier January deadline, then January 30th is the last opportunity, and you could submit an Alumni Hall of Honor award entry for one of your chapter alumni.
Jennifer?
I'm gonna,
Yes.
yeah, I'm gonna pause you for just a second. We
Yeah.
did have a question come in about the administrator awards.
Okay.
So there is an administrator that is not a vice president. Does the title have to be present for the Distinguished Administrator Award? So I guess the question, Melissa, is it a CEO? Do they have any sort of title as an administrator?
Yes, they absolutely do. And off the top
Yes.
of my head, I can't remember it, but this person has made, I remember I'm a new advisor. Last year I sat in some of these meetings and people are like, try to get your college on board to help you with fundraising. And I'm like, yeah, that's likely to happen. Not only did she make that happen, we
Oh,
got like $1,500 in one fundraiser that she set up for us and $5,000 from another. So, I mean,
nice.
she recorded PTK members, I actually donated $500 and did a challenge with some of my other friends to challenge to get PTK money. I mean, and then she has shown up at every event we've had. And I don't know, she's just a really pro
Yes.
PTK, and I've got pictures of her at our events, and I don't know, she's super. And
Yes.
I wish I could remember her title. She does have a title. It may be like fundraising and programming or something like that, but I don't think she's a vice president. So that's why I was wondering, is that vice president name important?
It is not. And the main thing is that they are considered an administrator on your campus.
Yes,
And
she
so if
absolutely is.
that's, yes, then you can be very clear in case they have a title like director, you might, say that, but we do have
Okay.
directors, deans that are nominated for this. So it doesn't have to just be a vice president title.
I
And
sort of think it's director. I think it's
Okay.
director of, yeah.
Yeah, just make sure that it's in the entry. It
Okay.
specifically says, that they are considered part of the administration. So,
Great.
yes.
Thank you.
The only other eligibility is that they have to have been in that position for 3 years. So as long as
Right.
they've met
And she's
that.
been there for years and years. So
Oh,
yes,
good.
we're
Okay.
good. I
Good
think we're
deal.
good. I'll check that all out though. Thank you.
And I just saw, oh, you're welcome. And I just saw another couple questions. Thanks, Susan, for answering that. I didn't put there were several deadlines for these particular categories that I have on the screen. So Susan is absolutely right. Member awards, advisor awards, these two categories are due January 11th. And so that's a week before the honors in action and college project entries are due. And so question Ruth has, what honors in action, with honors in action, does it have to be completed? My members are just getting started with research. And then what if it changes as they progress through the process? Susan, I am happy if you want to talk about this.
Sure. The Honors in Action project should be completed by December 31st, 2022 for this year. And so part of my recommendation, it's a-okay if your chapter changes some of its research. That happens fairly commonly as students work through the process. It's not a linear process. What I recommend, depending on how long that takes them, and the research into the honor study topic is vitally important to Honors in Action. It's really the most important part of the project. So I recommend, as they get through that part, doing some at least piece of the action, even if it's an action that takes a couple of hours in a day or a day, and get that part done. It doesn't mean that they can't do something else for the action, maybe in January. But if they do that when they submit a Hallmark award entry, they want to make sure that they explain, that they've done part of this, then part of it's going to be done in January, and maybe some specifics about when that's going to be done, and that they just walk the judges through that process.
Yes. So the main thing is that we really do, no matter how things have gone, we see value in them submitting an entry. And so, of course, honesty with that, full transparency, but it doesn't mean that you can't still submit a project if action is, still in the middle of it. And is it a 2-year project? It is not. It's the honor study topic that goes over 2 years. Susan, anything else you want to say there?
Oh, that's absolutely right. the honor study topic continues, and this is the first year of the art and science of play, and it will be the topic next year. But the project itself changes because usually the officers and the members you're working with change as well. And we want them to start at the beginning of the process too, and be able to own selecting the theme and doing the honors and study topic research and all those things. So the topic is 2 years, the project just 1 year.
Right. And you can, it gets started as early as January. And a lot of, well, I shouldn't say a lot, some chapters do that. But as we have found, especially those on their way to 5-star, chapters can literally go from 1 to 5-star in the fall semester. So it's not too late if you're listening to this. It is still possible to get, at least go through the process of honors in action and college project. If you're wanting to look at award-winning entries, I know it usually helps to see what other chapters have done. And even though we award the top 50 honors in action and the top 50 college projects, we select a good mix of those top entries, and we feature them in our journal. Civic Scholar is the one for honors in action entries, and Changemakers is the one for college project. We have editions, several editions for Civic Scholar and 1 edition for Changemakers that are already posted on our website. But we are getting ready to add the 2022 versions later this fall to the website. So you'll be able to see the most recent editions very soon, within a few weeks. So just to go over a few Hallmark basics, as I was starting, oh, wait, I do see a quick question. Is there someone that can help us with a write-up if it is our first time doing it? So, Kadra, I hope I'm saying your name correctly. Most of the time, the entries are done by the chapter members. And so the advisor is there to coach them through the process. And we're going to talk more specifically looks like in just a moment. But there are going to be, especially on individual categories, there will be a very clear statement about which nominations are written by the chapter advisor and which are written by the members. So we'll talk about kind of that advisor's role in just a second. And speaking of the advisor's role, again, in order for the members to have access to the applications, chances are you're not going to want the entire chapter officer team to be accessing the online apps, because it's better to finalize the responses, your answers to the questions, away from the application site. And then you're going to have the members, or the advisor can do this process if they prefer, just copy and paste into that online application. But in order for a member to have access, you have to report them as a Hallmark delegate. And that process is just like reporting them as a chapter officer. It's on your advisor dashboard. There are, for the advisor categories, the college also has a nomination. There is 1 question that they're responding to. And this is the first year that instead of it saying a college administrator, it can be any college employee, staff, faculty, or administrator, as long as it's not a chapter advisor. But anyone else who has some experience working with the chapter advisor, in relation to their Phi Theta Kappa work, could write that nomination. And again, it's 1 question. The person that writes it should probably put it in a PDF and email it to the chapter, and that way they can upload that PDF in the online application. As Susan said, the entries, this is for all categories. You are writing about anything that happened between January and December of this calendar year. So those entries due in January, that just gives you full access to all of those activities that happened by December 31st. Okay, let's see a question.
Yeah.
How do we give administrators access to do that? So what we recommend is that you are in the online application, you'll click on a tab that says college nomination, And then you can just copy and paste that question that they're responding to, send it to them by email, and then they can send you back their response in a PDF attachment. And then that way you have it. It can go to the student, of course, but you have that to upload to the online application. So we hope that helps, but it's easier for the advisor or a chapter member to do that than to, try to give access to the Hallmark Award site to an administrator or non-PTK advisor. Okay, so let's talk about advisors as coaches. We really do. I know that, a lot of advisors will say, okay, this is a student organization, so I am stepping out. This is all up to you. But we know that chapter members, they may only be around for a couple of semesters as an active member. And so it's a lot for them to process. The advisor is there to provide that continuity and to help them understand what the opportunities are for engagement. And so that is especially true when it comes to Hallmark Awards. We know that, it's a process, and Phi Theta Kappa has their own process for the awards. And we want advisors to share, to really think about their role in a way that helps in these different categories of understanding that they are the ones that can share what those opportunities are, what the categories are, eligibility. I mean, we write it out everywhere we possibly can, but that reinforcement that the advisor can provide can be really helpful to help them focus, which categories are the ones that the chapter wants to focus on and submit. Understanding that everybody in your chapter that's been involved in this process probably has different strengths. And so there may be some great writers. There could be others who are excellent proofreaders, others that have played a significant role in brainstorming throughout the project and participating in the project. So their input at the end of this writing process is going to be really critical. And then sometimes the biggest part of your advisor experience is really to just inspire that confidence, to let them know that they can do it. It may seem overwhelming at first, but we know that once they start taking those steps, they're going to, that momentum is going to build, and they're going to be able to accomplish this. And so that's, that can be like scholarship applications. You got to do a lot of reminders sometimes for students to fulfill that, to complete it, because they're busy. They get busy, a lot of priorities on their plate. And so this is an area where advisors really can be there to keep the chapter on track. Anyone else want to share on that too? I mean, I'm certainly open to that if y'all want to chime in with some other tips. Good. All right. Well, we'll keep it moving then. I'm trying to keep an eye on the time because I know we have a lot to go through and just limited time. So this is kind of a getting organized section. We want you to know that this part is going to be very familiar to you. It's not rocket science. There are going to be your own personalized steps that you may take. But we just want you to be able to see that process from beginning to end. The students, they're going to come at it with, maybe particular apps that they use, that they like and are familiar with. And so this is up to the chapter to determine how they want to collaborate on the writing and editing, proofreading process. Again, we always say to finalize the content before you go onto the online application, because it's easier to do it that way. The website is not set up that well for you to be doing a lot of editing online. It really is better if you finalized everything and then upload it. Sometimes a timeline, and I'm going to show you this sample one. This is strictly sample. We know that it's going to look a little different for every chapter, but as early as you can. I mean, by November 6th is just a suggestion, but I mean, I think October is a great time to do this, about starting to talk about which categories and who's going to be your main writers, and what, the different roles are. There is a role not only for members, but you can involve others in the proofreading and editing process. There may be a faculty member that would love, I shouldn't say would love, but would be willing to help out with this process, as long as they have plenty of notice. They have, you want to make sure you're not having members think it's okay to ask them the day before the deadline, hey, can you proof this before we upload it? So that's a great time to go ahead and determine who those people are going to be and get it on their calendars. And as I've said before, you can go ahead and report Hallmark delegates, to make sure they do have access. Some colleges will be closed up until, I know it's not unusual for some colleges not to open until after Martin Luther King Day. And so this may be something that you're doing on winter break, and you want to make sure that students already have access. They know what is expected of them before you leave for winter break. The brainstorming sessions, the reason why we mention this is we hope that there's several members that are taking notes throughout the projects, but it's also good to include maybe one or two collaborators to get some of their feedback and their perspective in this. Because if you look at the rubrics, there are a lot of details that the judges need to see in order to give you full points. And so, the more the merrier when it comes to, really understanding what all was done, those vivid details that you can get that explain the process, the strategic thinking. Sometimes chapters want to gloss over that, and we are very interested in them showing their work, right? Think of this as a math test. We want to see their work. And so that's why we always, really encourage that it's not just, hey, so-and-so, you're going to be in charge of writing, and then they go off and write without having that brainstorming session first to get all of the good details. Recommend, getting those drafts in before the winter break. And again, to just kind of give you that space and everyone's space to still enjoy the holidays, but also to have that plan of getting things, still on track and copied and pasted into the online app well before the deadline. So January 8th through 9th, that's right before the January 11th individual categories. But what a great time to go ahead and have honors in action and college projects ready to go too. You can go back in and edit up until the deadline, but that website gets really a lot of traffic, and so it might be difficult to access it when you want to. And so that's why we highly recommend doing it several days in advance, if not a week in advance. All right, any other, are we good on chat? We're good so far? Okay, all right. So I think I've talked about these points, except the part about the writers not taking it personally. And the main point here is that, especially for students, and I know I would 100% be this way, you pour your heart and soul sometimes into those written words, and then the ideal situation is that the entry is going to be edited. It is rare to have a first draft that is perfect, extremely rare. And so the writer needs to know that going in, that this is going to be, it's representing the best that the chapter can do to really capture their projects in a way that hits all of those rubrics. And so it's going to take some back and forth. And so you want to make sure that the student knows that their work may be picked apart some, and not in any reflection of their writing ability, but because you're trying to get, you're trying to make sure it is addressing the rubrics and really is representing the chapter's work in the best way. And so that's a conversation to have before the writing starts than later after someone's gotten their feelings hurt. Okay, so we hope it goes without saying. I've mentioned the rubrics, but it really is so essential. If you haven't pulled them out yet, make sure that those are front and center, especially as you're wrapping up projects or even starting them at this point. That cannot be overstated, that you want to be sure that the entries are reflecting what is in the rubric. The specific question certainly is prompting you, based on the rubrics, but it's not going to capture every single point of what's in those rubrics. So it is essential that those writers and editors have reviewed the rubrics very carefully. Separate questions, but one entry. And so we hope that, you want that entry to flow. You want members to understand that even though the judges, some are headquarters staff, we have volunteers that are higher ed professionals as well that are familiar with Phi Theta Kappa. However, just because they know Phi Theta Kappa does not mean that you can, completely omit what the honor study topic is. They're hoping to see a robust exploration of the honor study topic and that theme that they chose for their research, etc. So the art and science of play, while you don't have to repeat it over and over, you definitely want to have that front and center when it comes to explaining what the Honors in Action project is, as an example. And so that simply cannot be overestimated. A lot of acronyms, we'll sometimes see a lot of acronyms used and they won't spell it out, the first time. Certainly you can use acronyms after you've, referenced it in full, but we won't always know what CCC is, or even if it's the college name or a collaborator. You don't have to put the college name. But again, if you're using a lot of acronyms, that's just going to confuse instead of enlighten the judge. Okay, I see another question. Can we copy paste question and answers, or do we need to turn it into an essay format? So the question is going to be in the online application. You don't have to copy that, but you are copying the final answer into that blank, that response blank. And so it isn't, it should flow as one entry. There may be some overlap, of course, in answers, but you're not turning it into an essay. You really are, it should be a narrative for sure, but it's not an essay that is just based on the questions. It truly is responding very specifically to each question. Okay, I think that I've pretty much gone over this, except to emphasize a couple of things about the online application site, and that is to make sure there's time for, after it's been copied and pasted, to have someone else proofread it. It's very easy when you're doing that process to maybe omit a sentence or a paragraph, or to duplicate a paragraph. And it's also true that we're going to talk about Honors in Action more specifically. You're listing your resources, your research sources, and they are required to be in an APA citation, but the software we use does not allow boldface or italics or underlining. So everything else, though, we are looking for that full APA citation. We know that it's not going to have the bold or italics, but everything else should be up to that. I think it's 7th edition, Susan, 7th edition of APA. So be sure that that part is not overlooked. Okay. This is just to, again, to give some advice about this. We see a lot, and we know, especially with students, that it's easy for them to, maybe not realize, if they haven't done this before, that every nominee for these awards, the chapter thinks they're great, and they really love and respect the person and think they're an awesome leader. But we need to see evidence of why they think they're great and why they're an awesome leader. And so it's really important. These are just some examples. I'm not going to go through each one of ways that the chapter members who are writing these entries, and please don't let it be the nominee. We do see that occasionally, and that's really not who is supposed to be writing the entry, but they can be interviewed. I mean, sometimes it's, there may be parts of their role that the writer was not around for. And so it's perfectly fine to, involve the nominee. You don't have to keep it a secret that they're being nominated. But you always want to focus on what their PTK experience has been. For context, you can put in, if they've served on SGA or in other leadership roles on campus, but this is not a scholarship application where you're really putting everything into one. This is a Phi Theta Kappa award. And so we're focused on what their Phi Theta Kappa experience and leadership has been. And then I know we just did this in the Illinois region. It was so good. Many of you are familiar with Strengths Finder. Some of you may do other leadership type profiles or style guides with your students, and those give you some great descriptive language. And so that can be a great way to, kind of get those details and some other, instead of getting out of the thesaurus, they can use the write-ups about, what someone's strengths are when they're describing, like if they are an achiever, and as one of the strengths, then they can talk about exactly what motivates them, how they were organized, how that strength played out in their role in the chapter. And then, as I mentioned earlier, it's any college employee that can be asked for the college nomination for advisor awards. And, of course, if you're, especially with the students, to remind them that they need that, maybe they're trying to do it to keep it a surprise, but you don't want them to not be able to submit the entry because they forget that they also need to ask a college employee for a nomination. And then this is just an example, of maybe what we see a lot, that first sentence, and then what is really needed if the judge is going by the rubrics and really trying to award as many points as possible, we need that strong evidence, those specifics. So to drill down and speak very specifically to what the person has done. And that will be the same when students are writing about the advisors for the advisor awards as well. Okay, I think we have, looks like just maybe 10 minutes or so. So we were going to just highlight a couple of things. I see a few questions. What if the student graduates this semester? So in terms of if they're eligible to be nominated, or in terms of writing for the entry, they can definitely be nominated. Okay, both. All right, so they can still be nominated. Any member, officer who has been active in the chapter during this calendar year, you can nominate. They are eligible for that, even if they have graduated. Of course, we'd love for them to be at Catalyst, and alumni come back to Catalyst. They're as welcome as our active members and advisors, of course. And if they do graduate, since they've just graduated, if they're, especially if they've been a key player in the chapter's projects, it's perfectly fine for them to help out with that writing and editing process. I would involve as many active members, those who are coming back in January, as possible, so that it's not just that person who is graduating this semester, because you want that, that experience to carry forward. But they can still be involved in the process for sure. Okay, hopefully that answers your question. So I know that, we've mentioned the rubrics, ptk.org/hallmarks. You'll see all the categories, under Hallmark Award categories year round. We have the rubrics posted there, but then also in our honors program guide That is your main resource for implementing an honors in action project. And there's always a planning rubric. And so that's featured right in the guide. And so there's three main categories, but what we have found, and for interest of time, we're just going to focus quickly on some of the academic rigor rubric that can be missed, where chapters leave points on the table. And these are, as Susan mentioned, this is the most essential part of an honors in action project because everything stems from that careful research and the analysis of that research. So the emphasis on intentional research, judges will be able to tell if a chapter started with the action in mind and then did some research to back up what they did for action. It really is essential to make sure that the chapter is seeking out those research sources that give them different perspectives, that help them keep narrowing down their to get to their research question, and then to have a research question that is answerable. We know they have limited time. So again, we're not expecting, curing cancer. This is not, that would be awesome, but we know that there is a very specific time frame. And so, again, that process is so important. That's what we're really trying to emphasize, is them going through that process. And so the research objectives, I know a lot of times chapters don't quite understand what that is, and we spell it out in the rubrics where, how many people were on the research team? It can be 1 or 2. It doesn't have to be 10. But, did they have a goal for how many research sources that they would consult? We only require 8 that are included in the entry, but those 8 need to be reflective of the different perspectives that the chapter sought out, so that they were not just confirming what they already thought, but they really were intentional about that research. And it's, it's best if it's not all 8 journal articles, academic journal articles, to have some mixed media in there as well. And then, Susan, is there anything else that you wanted to throw in while we're talking about academic rigor?
I would just say that, and you've done a great job with this, but make sure that the academic sources are truly academic sources.
Yes.
It makes a difference to get those points. They have to be academic.
Right. And it's fine if chapters are starting with the New York Times and, Time magazine and those kinds of things when they're first, trying to determine what their focus is going to be. But the 8 sources that are listed do have to be truly academic, as Susan said. So that's another part of that advisor coaching, because we say that, it's an annotated bibliography. So we want them to include a sentence or 2 that explains why this particular resource was so important to, their analysis. But, they may think, well, gosh, that New York Times article really helped us tremendously. Well, that's great. We have no doubt that it did, but it most likely led you to, some other research sources. That's what you're including in the entry, not the New York Times that maybe sparked an interest, but where you went for that, the nuts and bolts research part. And of course, your librarian, other faculty, advisors have varying senses of comfortableness with this, or just time. It is perfectly okay to include those others in this process. We're not expecting you to do every single part. That coaching, that you can delegate some of that. Part of being an advisor is being able to connect the chapter with those great resources. So don't hesitate to do that. We know there's only 24 hours in the day. Last time we checked. So, all right. So on the college project one, and I'm going to check. I see. Okay, I think I got it. The couple things that I will point out here is that a lot of times chapters miss that the college project is about growing and strengthening that relationship with the college administration. They see college project and think, great, let's do a service project and it's going to take place on the campus. So done and done. And that's not the purpose of a college project. That may be a great service project, but the college project is really meant to be, making sure that the administration and the chapter have a true partnership. It is an opportunity for those students to work alongside college professionals because it's a joint project. And so we do separate workshops on college project. I know we have webinars and of course on Honors in Action as well. So we're kind of hitting the very top highlights here. But that is for sure one of the things that we see missing in a lot of college project entries is that the purpose of it related to doing something that the administration needs or has a need that can be fulfilled by the students working on something that's a college priority. So it's related to the mission statement. And again, it's something that is, growing that relationship through the leadership development and communication and of course, impact. And so that point cannot be overly stressed of how to weave in throughout the entry, the meetings with administrators, how the chapter worked with others on campus. And it can be with students as well, but it does need to have at least one college department involved in fulfilling that particular project because it is related to the college's mission, not what the chapter is doing already for Honors in Action, but what is a goal that the college has that the chapter is contributing to. Okay, so having said that, I wanted to, make sure that my email address is up for further questions in this. But what areas didn't we touch on that you wished we had? Are there questions, even if it's just simple questions about deadlines, more information that's needed about writing? What can we help clarify?
Hello.
Yes.
This is Jaquan. Where can we find more information on just the writing aspect of the project?
Great question, Jaquan. We have on that ptk.org/hallmarks. We have posted there some previous webinars that we did that really are focused on writing to the rubrics, particularly for college project Honors in Action. And I think there's a separate one for individual awards. So you can find those there. And then we're going to be doing additional Hallmark Award sessions that students are invited to. I think November is when the chapter what we call chapter leader sessions. And Patty, I know you're going to talk about that. But there are already some great videos that are at that ptk.org/hallmarks if you want to kind of zero in on the writing. And then I cannot leave this out. We just had a fantastic technical writing webinar last month with one of our advisors who's also a communications professor. And that is, I'm going to put in, since you're an advisor, you will find it at 5staradvisor.ptk.org.
Update.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. Did I put in the wrong one?
Yeah. So
sorry.
that because students were at that session, we put those sessions over at Get an Edge. So advisors and students can access the technical writing workshop at Get an Edge.
Gotcha. Okay. And it's at the bottom, right? They scroll down to the bottom.
So no, they go to Get an Edge at ptk.org.
Okay.
And then they'll see all of the professional development courses. And they'll just look for Phi Theta Kappa program resources and enter that air quotes course, because it's not a course, it's just where we list all of our resources. And you'll see 5-star chapter development, college project, honors in action, and then professional development. And that's where technical writing, the technical writing workshop is there. I will
Okay.
include that information in the follow-up email that I send to all the advisors today that
Okay.
this one.
Great. Patty's right. We're doing, we kind of tailor our sessions for different audiences. And so the student site for all of these is at our PTK Edge course site, and that's getanedge.ptk.org. But that technical writing is not just focused on hallmarks, but it's focused on all kinds of writing. And so it gives some good general tips that apply to Hallmark awards as well. So, okay. All right. Well, any other questions? Oh, thank you, Melissa. We're so happy that you could join us for this. And one of the best things is that you can watch this on demand and, rewind and fast forward as needed, right? You don't have to wait for us, but please know, and I'm going to put that back up. We know that it's right when you're in the middle of writing entries and your students writing entries and helping them, coaching them through that process of when you have questions. And so don't hesitate. You can reach out to us. If I can't answer your question, I'll make sure that one of the others at Phi Theta Kappa headquarters can get in touch with you. But we want you to not miss this opportunity. Again, every chapter that submits honors in action, college project, and at least one individual award, that's the bulk of doing what is required of a 5-star chapter plan. And if you've gone through these steps, we don't want you to miss out on that recognition, because you're not competing with anyone else for that recognition. You could definitely have your chapter recognized and your college administration aware of your 5-star status. And that's huge. We only have so many awards that can be given out on stage at PTK Catalyst, but we can have as many 5-star chapters as our chapters in Phi Theta Kappa. And so we want that, that's really, it's recognizing the chapter's hard work, and they deserve that recognition if they go through this process. All right. Yes, Ruth, we are definitely, as Patty said, she is going to send out the email that has the recording and the PowerPoint link. So you'll get both of those.
Get both of them. And it will also be posted for this one, because we were just meeting with advisors. This one will go into the 5-star advisor curriculum, just at 5staradvisor.org/ that's where that one is. And it'll be at the bottom of the page. There we go, at ptk.org. And then scroll down to the bottom and you will see all of the sessions we've done this year, including ones for honors in action and college project, if you want to go back and review the important parts of those things. And so they are all there for the advisor's point of view, right? And there's those other ones that are over there for the students. Now we are going to do another advisor Hallmark award overview, Hallmark 101, how to Hallmark, for new advisors next week. You're more than welcome to join us. We're going to be looking at the Hallmark award system and the steps that you have to take to make sure that you're giving the students access to be the writers on the team, and so that you can see and keep up what they're doing as well. In November, we're inviting everybody into the pool all at once, advisors and students at the same time. We're going to, on November 2nd, I believe, it's all about the chapter Hallmark awards. It was on the 2nd, I believe. And then on the 30th of November, we will talk about the individual. I might have them backwards, but regardless, we will have 2 sessions in November, and we will send that information out to you. And that's open to your students and also to you as well. And we look forward to seeing you then. So for those of you that joined today, thank you so much. And for those who will be watching this on demand, please feel free to reach out to us with any questions. I don't know if anybody else has anything else that they want to add or questions before we say good night or goodbye.
Good.
Good.
All right. Thanks everyone for coming. We really appreciate it, and happy Hallmarks.
Happy Hallmarks.